But as we continue through our study in the book of Psalms, we are now at Psalm 129, and this is another one of the songs of ascents. There actually are 15 of them, and this is number 10. Okay, so we have a few more to go yet. But I titled it, Wickedness Tries But Will Fail. It's a relatively short psalm. Again, it's only 8 verses, and we actually have some shorter ones coming up and some longer ones again. I forget which one it is, but there's the next short one we have, I think, is like 3 verses. But we had 2 in a Psalm 117, so. But anyway, the whole concept of wickedness is constantly battling and trying to win, but it will fail. This we know because we have received promises from God that it will fail. And this psalm is kind of talking about that, but there's two things we find. We find the teaching in it that would have been understood at the time it was written, and there's a teaching for us today. Because if there wasn't a teaching for us today, it wouldn't be in the Bible. That's basically the way it goes. Okay, so verse 1. Many times they have persecuted me from my youth up. Let Israel now say. Okay, Israel, if we remember right, had been around for a long time. And then it kind of dispersed, but the Jews kept track of, you might say, their lineage. And even today, many of the Jews know their lineage going all the way back. And they, you might say, kind of have always formed, you might say, a group in and of themselves. The Jews are unique that way. And then in 1948, Israel was reestablished or reborn, however you want to put it. And there is such a parallel between the nation of Israel and our Christian life. And I'm not talking about a parallel because one is where the other one came out of. I'm talking about the way things laid out also reflects how we have come to Christ and what that means. And it's kind of like a parallel line. Because remember, going back, it starts off with the call of Abraham. God called Abraham. Now, Abraham was an idol worshiper at the time of his call. People think that, Abraham was a good guy, that's why God called him. No, he wasn't. He was an idol worshiper like pretty much everybody else in the neighborhood. But God called him. Okay? Isn't that true for us? We weren't that good, but God called us. So, okay, here's the beginning. Now we continue on. Then you have Isaac and Jacob. Okay? So you have these generations, and then out of Jacob, which his name gets changed to Israel, but you have the 12 tribes. Or you have a unique group of people that make up a unique race that God is going to work through. So we can see it like the church. And we're going to see that a little bit more connection here in a minute. So we individually are called, us come together as a body, and we form the church. Okay? So we have that parallel continues on, I say, from the Old Testament to today. And then we have another unique one in the Old Testament, very familiar. We've heard of this guy called David and a guy he had a fight with called Goliath. Okay? Now, I was looking at this and studying this. I realized, that parallel continues. In that story, which is a true story, by the way, it's not just a story, of David and Goliath, when we look at the parallel between that set of circumstances, that instance, and the church today. If you remember, Goliath was a great big guy, and he's mouthing off, and he's cursing God, and he's making a mockery of David. David is this young guy, but David stops by the brook and pulls out 5 stones. Have you ever wondered why 5? Why 5 stones? It just didn't seem necessary. Yeah. So they were 5 smooth stones. Okay? So he goes to Goliath. They talk back and forth, and Goliath is just, there's no way, this punk kid is going to take me. But he does. Okay, we all know. David takes a sling, he kills the giant. Okay, the giant is kind of a world. The world in which all evil comes out of, the natural state of man. David is the Savior representing Jesus. The stone is the one stone is all it needs because he only needs one sacrifice. There is no Jesus and. But now you still got 4 left. Okay, now let's take one step further. What did Jesus say to Peter about a stone? He said, on this rock I will build my church. Well, that rock is a Petros, which is a pebble, which is a small rock, a stone. David's stone. The symbolism from that story to where Christ established his church, now you have the 4 left. And they could actually mean a number of things. 4 in the Bible quite often is in reference to creation itself, physical creation. You could talk about the 4 corners of the earth. But that one stone that provided the way, Jesus, for the salvation of mankind is spread throughout all of the world, the 4 stones. The parallels are all there. We have it all the way back, like I said, to Abraham, and then all the way through, and we'll constantly see, and there's a whole bunch more we can look at and say, you see the parallels between what is being said here, what is being done there, and how it fits in exactly with the way our Christian walk is today? It kind of lays out this framework. So Israel, as a nation, is a nation. The church, as a church, is a church. The true church of God. Okay? So now you also have verse 2, and it sounds like almost identical verse again. It says, many times they have persecuted me from my youth up, yet they have not prevailed against me. See, the first verse was, many times they have persecuted me from my youth up. Second verse is, many times they have persecuted from my youth up. Okay, exact same thing. Okay? Except for the last line. In the first verse, it's let Israel now say. In the second verse, yet they have not prevailed against me. Let Israel say that they have not prevailed against me. Israel being the representation of the Old Testament and the New Testament church. But its troubles in the church go all the way back to the beginning. Then we have one curious little factor here is, who are they? Now, we hear that used all the time. How many times have you? Well, they said. Okay? They say, they said, they do, they whatever. Of course, in reality, the they is the context of where it's being used. Most of the time I've always found that they are idiots, but we'll leave that alone. Okay? Here in verse 1, the they is the enemies of Israel. Both from the surrounding nations and the demons acting as gods and the peoples whose actions and lifestyle are contrary to God's law, not trusting in the one true God, but looking to idols and self for help. That's the they in verse 1. In verse 2, the they are the persecutors of God's people, both demons and men that hate God. Okay? That's who the they are. So we have to add that context to what we're doing and see that we have obviously 2 groups of people here. We have the they and we have the us. Verse 3 kind of brings that a little bit more together. The plowers plowed upon my back, they lengthened their furrows. Okay, confused on that one, because that just seems like a bunch of rambling words that don't seem to fit nothing. Context, again. Context is very important when looking at Scripture. Okay, when we look at this, in Isaiah 51, it really helps us to see that a little clearer. There it says, I will put into my hand, in the hand of your tormentors, who have said to you, lie down, that we may walk over you, and have you made your back like the ground, and like the street for those who walk over it. In other words, the world says to us, submit. Submit to what we say. And the tormentors are saying, I'm going to plow your back. In other words, I am going to prepare the soil for deception. Plowing deep so that the deception is deep and strong. That's what the world says to the people of God. See, if you remember, we have they. Who are they? They're the evil, the demons, but also people themselves. So if we look at that verse, how it speaks to us today, it's in Isaiah 51, lie down that we may walk over you. How many times have you heard that line? People say, just do it, okay? They say, just accept what you're told. You're told these things, just accept it, stop arguing about it. I said it, so it's right, so you have to follow it, okay? Just conform to our ways. Quit making a problem out of these things. Just because you don't like it, you just need to conform. You need to do what you're told. Just accept our truth. Truth is arbitrary, okay? So if truth is arbitrary, our truth is greater than your truth, so you just accept our truth. This is what they are calling for. This is who they are trying to bring out the strength. And there is no strength in it, because when you really look at what they bring out, it's worthless. It's always wrong. It's always a lie. It's always deceptive. But that's what they do. That's who they are. And then in this verse, when it talks about the plowing on the back and the furrows being deep, they are trying desperately to really get down deep inside of us to destroy us. Destroy us with the lies, because it's not truth, it's their truth. See, we know we have God's truth. That is ultimate truth. But they don't like it. They don't want it. They reject it. Verse 4, the Lord is righteous. He has cut in two the cords of the wicked. See, now we got this change going on. We have the deception. We have the tormenting. We have the lies. And now we have the Lord is righteous. This is where we turn to for truth. And he has cut the cords of the wicked. You know that originally we start off in bound in sin. That we have no hope because we're caught, we're shackled to sin. But then, because again, what Jesus did for us. See, he cut the power of sin and death. He set us free. Set us free because we were tied up in sin. We were shackled in sin, but he came and set us free. So what binds us, the Lord is righteous and he has cut the cords of the wicked. It's clearly saying, because of God's righteousness, because of Jesus' righteousness, he has freed us. He has cut the cords that bind us to sin and death. And then verse 5. May all who hate Zion be put to shame and turned backward. Here's the world again. Why does the world hate Zion? Because Zion is truth. But they will be put to shame, and they will be turned back. Interesting, one of the stories that Jesus told about the rich man and Lazarus. Here again, very familiar. The rich man asked that he may get a drop of water because he's in such torment there. And when he's told no, that nobody can cross over, he says, well, then at least send Lazarus back to earth to warn my brothers. I've got 5 brothers. To me, what's interesting about that story is not what is said, but what's not said. The rich man never says, I should not be here. I wasn't this bad. I really shouldn't be here. There's something wrong. He never says that. He accepts his fate. He accepts he is there with justice. He doesn't deny it. He just accepts it. So that whole concept of those who hate Zion will be put to shame, yes, those who hate God will be put to shame. They won't stand up in hell and say, I didn't deserve this. They will stand up and say, I did deserve this. I know I did. Verse 6, let them be like grass upon the housetops, which withers before it grows up. Now, hopefully you don't have a lot of grass growing on your housetop, okay? If you do, you have some issues that you might want to deal with, especially if you have a shingled roof, right? Now, more likely we have grass growing in our gutters. That's a more common thing. But if you ever notice, it really has no depth. And when the rain stop and things dry up, they die pretty quickly. They still got to get cleaned out because you got all the roots and stuff you got to get rid of. But so, like grass upon the housetops, which withers before it grows up. So before it really has a chance to really establish itself and spread out, the dry spell comes and they die off. So who is let them? Who's them? Them or they? Keep things in context. Okay? So they will die quickly. They will not prosper. Now, in this world, they may look as though they're prospering, but they're not. There is no prospering in this world without Christ. That does not happen. And then verse 7, with which the reaper does not fill his hand, or the binder of sheaves his bosom. With this withering grass, you don't fill your hand with it because there's so little of it. There is nothing of value. And you can't bind together sheaves if you don't have enough crop to do it. So those that gather the good harvest, okay, we that gather the good harvest, what's the good harvest? And that's souls for Christ. But we receive nothing from they. See, they is a hindrance, not a help. What they do, what they say, is a hindrance to the spreading of the gospel. But the world, everything it has to offer is in vain. It's worthless. So he doesn't fill his hand, nor the binder of sheaves his bosom. Verse 8, nor do those who pass by say, the blessings of the Lord be upon you. We bless you in the name of the Lord. Now, who are those? They again, okay? Nor do they who pass by say. So the wicked in the world, they don't say, be blessed, but the Lord, the blessing of the Lord be upon you. I mean, you've never heard an evil, wicked person come up to you and say, may God bless you, and mean it. Okay? People don't do that. But we bless you in the name of the Lord. And in the name of the Lord, okay, name again means who the person is, not just the name. So come and see the work of the wicked. One day they will learn that nothing of value comes from that labor. The labor, it's like Solomon said in Ecclesiastes, which is actually kind of interesting because our Sunday school lesson points right directly to this. Vanity, vanity, all is vanity. And that's actually the section we goes into our Sunday school time. So there's no praise on the lips of they. All their striving in life leads to nothing but dissatisfaction. All the efforts to trip me up will fail. At times it will seem to be working. Even I will think so. How many times have you thought, I'm struggling with this, and I know God's on my side, I trust him, but are you really helping me, or are you letting me fight through this, and I don't know if I can make it? I'm worried here that I'm just not strong enough. But with the Lord on my side, the outcome is sure. We just need to trust him. That's why we go right back to the beginning, to the first verse. Yet they have not prevailed against me. They won't. They can't. Because we have the Lord's on our side. So what do we got to do in the meantime? We got to work till Jesus comes.